Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos podcast, a show where we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a survivalist and a prepared individual in today's society. I'm your host, Chris Bartagone, ZP002, and with me, as always, my co-host, Jamie Franks, X739D. Jamie, Happy New Year. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here as always, and Happy New Year. Good to be here in 2024. And I think you said we are this puts us officially in season 2 of the Coffee and Chaos podcast.
It is. Season 2, episode 1 dropped with the party shirt talk with Rad Palm. That was filmed at the end of 2023, and then it was scheduled for the first show of 2024. We are obviously recording episodes every week, so the goal here with 2024 is to have a good fair share of episodes in the queue ready to go. So, you know, when we sit here and do this intro, some days it may not line up, but we are in 2024, and it is a busy January with everything that is coming up. You know, the holidays came and went very fast, and you know, when you get up to when you're getting up to them, you're like, gosh, I can't wait for these things to be over. And then when they're over, you for like a second, you're like, I wish there was one more. And then you just kind of like, nah, forget it. We have hit the ground running here at, you know, just with everything on the Clark Armory side, and then obviously on the ZERT side. And it's always a fun day, I will say, to try and juggle what the day brings as far as where the focus goes. But there are some exciting things happening in 2024. And when we started to plan this recording schedule for what we want to talk about, you brought up the subject of today's show, and basically it's a ZERT State of the Union. It's been a minute since I think I've done one, and the last time I think I did it was like on a Facebook Live type situation. And I like the Facebook Lives, with the exception of the fact that they're on Facebook. I don't.
Great point.
I mean, it is, and I know that we can go live on YouTube, but every time we've tried to take it off the platform, it never seems to have the audience that we were looking for. You know, we used to see 70 to 75 people on a live. And I think even the last time that we did the town halls, we just weren't getting the outpouring from the members. So I like this as a podcast. And then obviously we've been releasing these on YouTube, so anybody can go back and watch it. They can start it at one time and finish it at another time. And I do like that. I will go back to going live on Facebook. What happens with that is I have to be cognizant of time zones. You know, doing it at 6:00 on the East Coast is great for East Coast folks, but then the West Coast people are still working, and you know, it doesn't work. Then doing it later on the East Coast means that, you know, I'm doing it I'm not doing it in the studio, which I love doing the videos here in the studio. It's a very professional quality, and I think it looks good. And then just having one of the HQ admins on there to kind of moderate, so things can be answered, and I'm not constantly having to stop divvying out putting out information to go back and read the comments. But I love reading the comments. I love engaging with the members because it's what this is all about. So, you know, kudos to you for coming up with the topic of today's show. I know we have some good ones coming up, but this one I think is very important.
Yeah, and you know, you made a point a second ago that, you know, calendar year wise, like the last quarter of the calendar year, basically from October through the 1st of January, it's, you know, you got Halloween, you've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas goes right into New Year's, and then in the beginning part of the year we have this kind of long lull, at the beginning where there's not really any holidays. And for me, I highly decorate my whole house for all of the previously stated holidays. I'm a big Clark Griswold guy for Christmas and Halloween
Of
too, and
course.
everything. And so for me, it's like whenever I come to this point of the year where I take down all of my decorations, it makes me a little introspective because the Christmas tree only comes out once a year, and so
Right.
every time I'm putting it away, it makes me think of what's going to be different in the world and what's going to be different in my life by the next time I see this Christmas tree. The next time I pull this Christmas tree out, what will have happened between now and then? And SHOT Show is coming up, and SHOT Show is a big. That's kind of how we mark the twine in the firearms world, not even in the firearms industry. Like all the people that are outside of quote unquote the industry, that are just firearms enthusiasts or shooters or instructors or whatever.
Right. Yep.
Um, that SHOT Show is kind of the big the what's the word I'm looking for, the big like centerpiece event. And so then as far as like a ZERT State of the Union, it makes me think, I mean, like I'm always just kind of amazed at how quickly the year has gone by, especially when you look at it
Right.
in terms of from SHOT Show to SHOT Show. From like SHOT Show a year ago seems like it was 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now it's about to be here again. So
Yeah. And I just seeing the well, I just actually had to look at the event today because somebody asked me about a dinner while out in Las Vegas, and I had to make sure that it wasn't on the same day that the ZERT meet and greet out in Las Vegas is. Which, I mean, going back in the day, they had the ZERT Galactic Kegger, right, and that was put
mhm.
on with a local firearm store out there, and that is actually their event. And then ZERT just attached themselves to it, the intergalactic kegger, and it was a great time. I mean, it had a huge turnout, and uh, there was a plan to do it last year with agency and kind of be at the agency party based off of the theme of what it was. Um, but we opted to just go with a meet and greet with the members, and I thought it was a good time. We had a
Yeah.
good turnout. We got to meet some awesome people, some good local people. Some folks came down from Washington. Other folks came in from California, and obviously XB001 was there, which
Mhm.
everybody loves. Um, and we're doing it again this year. It's going to be at the same place. It's going to be on Tuesday. I think it's 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so 6 or 6:30. But I'm excited to get out there and do that again. Um, I, you know, last year, gosh, no, not last year, because we're in 2024 now. So
Indeed we are.
2020, yeah, 2022, I spent, and I put this out there to all of the state moderators and the state POCs, and I had said that when I took over ZERT in 2021, that I wanted to get out there and meet as many members as I possibly could, and we're gonna go back in time here during this episode, and we're going to kind of give you a flashback to what ZERT was and the roadmap to what ZERT is going to be, and the future of what we're doing. I've been on the phone all morning with XP001. We have some cool things that we're talking about. We do have an event planned at the end of March in Pennsylvania. So we will talk about that a little bit today. And that's what happened in 2021. The POCs were on it, man. As soon as I put that message out I think it was December of 2021, I had just been invited to the Pennsylvania meet and greet, and I put it out there after I got back that if you give me enough notice, I will be there. And within days, North Carolina had a meet and greet scheduled. I was out there. The next month, it was February. I was out in Oklahoma. I think March, I was in Ohio. And then there were a couple others, but they didn't have the turnout at the time. But and that's okay. I know Georgia had planned a bunch, and then I know that there's there was a few others. I think Colorado, Louisiana. There was some that were planned, and some I was not able to attend because of just timing. Going forward, we're gonna kind of squash that issue, and I'm gonna be out there at any one of these that I possibly can. So I'm excited about some of those things. But like you just said, when you do that, and when you start putting a schedule together for every month of things, next thing you realize is it's October of 2024. And you, oh, what the heck just happened here? How do we get here? So, it's exciting, but it's also overwhelming because it just, it doesn't stop. And one of the things that I wanted to do, and it's still on the to-do list, is to then organize and grow the international membership side. There was just some messaging going back and forth with a member in Australia saying, it's been pretty quiet down here because Australia had enough members where there was basically a second website and a second store solely to support Australia because shipping, and it was basically a forward operating base. And there was some back and forth with the gentleman down there at the time, and I would love to. He's the guy that came up, and he would come to Vegas. He would come to Vegas. He would stop at HQ. He's the one that brought the Vegemite and kept got Aaron to try Vegemite, and he's been continuing to try to get me to eat Vegemite, and I'm good there.
So in the Navy, when we do our crossing the equator WOG Day shellback ceremony, eating Vegemite is one of the punishments that's doled out, if that gives you any idea of how delicious it is or isn't. In the Navy, we use it as a punishment. So
yeah, there it is.
Or as like a hazing thing.
Yeah. But and then just with the release or re-release of the XP001 figure, the remastered figure, which by the way, sold out.
That's awesome.
Completely sold out. I'm excited. I have a case coming. We're going to be doing something really cool with that case. There's not a lot in a case, so it's going to be a super limited release. But I'm excited to when they get here, and then I'm excited when we announce that release. But with that being said, there's a huge following in Japan. I mean, the ZERT members out there, I remember when I first took over and emails were going back and forth. I think it was either an email or social media. One of the ZERT members basically said, we want to set up a ZERT store out here for the amount of people that are into it out there. And I thanked them and I said 100% yes, but you got to let me fix everything that needs to be fixed over here, get everything squared away and kind of set back up. And then we'll start the international tour in Japan. I mean, that would be huge.
That'd be awesome.
I know, right?
And I think there was a time, and I kind of think maybe it's still a contextual thing that people associate ZERT really, really heavily with firearms. But I think, through the stuff that we've seen the Oklahoma chapter doing, and through the stuff we've discussed on this podcast, and through all that, like I think we've started to take, hopefully, I think we've started to kind of spread the peanut butter out on ZERT and show that ZERT is really about so much more, that firearms is really just one slice of the pie, but there is still the whole rest of the pie where it is, bushcraft and survival and prepping and communication and community and all that kind of stuff. So that, continuing to spread the peanut butter in that direction, so to speak, I think just in theory, at least, should help beef up that international membership in places where, we're very fortunate in the United States to have our right to own firearms enshrined in our Constitution, and that's
Right.
not the standard in the rest of the world. So in
Exactly.
those places, like I said, continuing to spread ZERT in those other directions, I would think should help that side of the international
Yeah,
membership.
I agree. Now, which brings me to, I guess we'll jump in the DeLorean and go back here. When I spoke with Aaron today, and the reason why the entire story needs to be kind of put together in a timeline is because some of the things that we're doing right now require that story to be told. And you know, Zert Zert's 13th birthday actually falls on my birthday, the 25th of November. And so it was 13 years ago, well, just over 13 years ago, where Aaron XP001 formed this idea of ZERT with 10 people, and it was basically working at a gun store. And it was a time, it was a wild west time on the internet. Social media was not as regulated as it is now. And there was not a lot of cool content out there. You didn't have, nobody in the space had a studio, had cool lighting, knew what camera work was, that I'm aware of, right? I mean, you're talking 13 years ago, so just think of what TV shows look like 13 years ago, and that'll give you an idea of what was out there. But it started from there, and he isolated a demographic, which was the NRA demographic, first time gun owners, people new to the experience, wasn't really looking at the at the high speed type group. And I don't mean anything by that, but that's where he was focusing on, because in his mind, it was, okay, reaching those first time gun owners to get that information out there to people. And what I love about that was exactly that. It was based on that NRA demographic, focused towards first time gun owners. But what you just said is the future of it. So we're going to kind of go back and forth in our DeLorean here, right? So that's what ZERT was, but now we want to reach those other first time people, right? The
There's a
first
lot of
time
merit.
Bush.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was about to say. Like, there's a lot of merit in that on both sides of that coin. On the shooting side, I have been a shooting instructor, and I have been a swimming instructor, rescue swimmer instructor, water survival instructor. And so in my experience, firsthand experience, in depth with both of these things, my little catchphrase is swimming and shooting are the two things that if anybody can do it a little bit, they think they can do it a lot. Anybody that can jump off of the diving board at their uncle's house, do a cannonball into the pool, and swim over to the ladder, that person thinks they can swim 5 miles just because they can do a cannonball off the diving board and swim to the ladder. A person that owns 3 guns thinks they're an expert shooter just because they think they are. And so trying to attract those first time gun owners or beginner gun owners, you're really avoiding all those people that like already think they know better.
Right.
And you're attracting people that are coming into this understanding that they don't know. And I actually heard something recently, and where I'm going with this is exactly where you were trying to go with it, where the same sentiment applies true for people that are prepping and stuff. Like I told you, my next door neighbor saw me post a link to this podcast on my Facebook, and she listened to it. She's a single lady, and she was like, "Oh my God, this really opened my eyes to how unprepared I am." So the same sentiment applies, but just using firearms as the example. I heard somebody talking recently about how, when the COVID lockdowns first started happening, a lot of people that didn't have firearms panicked because they felt like they needed a firearm now. And so they went out and every quality firearm sold out quickly. And then all that was left was kind of the undesirable stuff that nobody else wanted, which is why that's what was left. And so because everything was locked down, they bought whatever gun they could get. My training company, the shooting classes that I teach, we didn't teach for probably about 6 months, and I actually think we were one of the first ones to open back up and actually start teaching while the lockdowns were still going on. But in most places you couldn't, because most ranges were shut down, because everything was shut down. So you had all these first time gun owners going out and buying a gun, and they brought it home and they sat it on the coffee table and they stared at it, and it
Right.
was
Yep.
almost like they brought a rattlesnake into the house and they were afraid to touch it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those people, I think now that we're 3 years on from the pandemic, a lot of those people have either stashed their gun away somewhere, or maybe they've gotten rid of it and sold it, but I it's almost as if a lot of those people that could have been a great first time gun owner demographic that could have been attracted and educated and advanced by a community like ZERT. It's almost like because there wasn't anything during that time, and there wasn't a community at that time, and there wasn't any training going on, and there wasn't anything for those people to lean on. It's almost
Right.
like that experience kind of, those people quickly turned towards guns, and now they have also almost as quickly turned away from them again, because it was, from their point of view, it was like they brought a rattlesnake into the house. But so this community can help those people, and also on the prepping side can also help show people how, politely show them how unprepared they are, and then
Right.
in
I,
in an
yeah.
inviting way get them on the right
Right.
path.
So yeah, and so that kind of brings it right back to, like, that's great. That's what it started, and now the evolution is to be more than just a firearms focused
Mhm.
organization group. Sure, it's the basis of a good majority of the membership, right? I mean,
And it's sexy.
every yeah, of course it is. Of course, there's nothing sexy about applying a tourniquet, not at all.
No,
Um,
no, there is
there,
not.
there is nothing sexy about canning, food canning, and water purification and comms. But you don't have guys going out there with making high speed videos of applying tourniquets and canning. It's just, it's not the cool guy stuff. And
Well,
there's
and
not.
my gun is the thing I've trained with the most.
Right.
My gun is the thing that I have carried with me pretty much always everywhere, and my
Right.
gun up to this point in my life is the one thing I've never had to use. I
Exactly.
like
Right.
almost everything else in my survival kit,
Yep.
communications, first aid, fire starting, water purification. I've had to use
Right.
all of those things except the gun.
Right. So that's why the focus on, as we grow in and we evolve, and the focus of ZERT is to reach out to those first time survivalists, those
Mhm.
first responders. And what I mean by that is medical, and, sure. So medical, those first time bushcraft seekers that
Well,
want the
when you say
knowledge.
first responder, you're meaning it in terms of being your own first responder.
Exactly. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, those people that they realize that they're going to have to provide medical assistance at some point, and they are unprepared and don't know where to go, or who to go to. That's the other thing.
Mhm.
This is a community, and it's a community of people that communicate and network, and they talk frequently, they gather, they exchange ideas. So I'm not saying that every piece of information is going to come without needing to be vetted, but you're going to be provided information from vetted sources. And what I mean by that is in a training aspect.
Mhm.
We will never bring a non-vetted trainer into the ZERT community and offer classes if we do not know what that skill set looks like. Um, so I loved what that was about. Right. And then I asked the question, I was like, okay, so, what was it that, and I had to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Right. I couldn't recollect what was the driving factor that saw the big growth. Again, I wasn't as involved. Um, I was working for other companies, still, paving my own way with those companies. So, it kind of just grew from there. And we've all seen a a zombie movie that shows, or whatever, not even a zombie movie. Let's just talk a movie that shows a centralized situation happening, and then it grows from there, and it evolves and it expands, and one person becomes four people becomes eight becomes 12, and that's what happened with ZERT. There were a couple of driving factors to that. It was in Las Vegas, and it had a good group of people that would connect with each other and go out and then want to do that training. And Aaron even told me, it was like the initial membership card that went out was like Fight Club. Number one rule of ZERT is you don't talk about ZERT. Number two rule about ZERT, and it was kind of a joke and a parody.
Yeah.
The other driving thing that helped ZERT, and it's going to go back to where he was working at the time, was The Walking Dead had just come out. And The Walking Dead in its first season was, I think, one of the most popular things out there. And I believe, I'd have to go do some fact checking. And if you're watching this or listening and you want to fact check it, do it. I think it was a driving factor for gun sales. So many people so it was like the first publicized, or maybe it was the first kind of series that showed the fall of civilization over time. And people panicked, and it drove them to the gun store to buy firearms, which then gave Aaron the opportunity to talk to more people, and it kind of grew from there, which is, everybody that's listening and watching this knows, it was the origin of ZERT. ZERT was an acronym, and it was based off of a zombie type situation. Then the Resident Evil movies came out, and you had all of those things. And then people started to kind of get involved. They wanted to roll with the cool kids in Las Vegas, and it got traction. There was a class that was put on, and I can't remember who Aaron said it was put on with, but at the time ZERT was still young, and Aaron used to have everybody show up for class in a I don't want to say a uniform, but you had to wear a t-shirt, and it had to be a ZERT t-shirt. And then when the patches thing came out, they had patch regulations. So the patches needed to be, on the ZERT, the ZERT patch needed to be on one side, the American flag had to be on the other, the call sign had to be over there, and it was very regulated. And people would be like, well, that's not how it is in the military. And they're like, we're not the military. So it's not, it's the opposite of what that was. Now,
Yeah, and I like that in theory, except for then you start sounding and looking like you're training a militia, which can catch the wrong kind of attention from the wrong kind of people.
Exactly. And so that's where I was just about to go with it, is we took the DeLorean back to what it was, and now we're taking the DeLorean to the future, where there's hoverboards, and that is not, that's why, hey, if we're going to have an event, everybody show up in party shirts, please. Like, party shirts, the right belt, but let's not be that, because that was one of the black check marks, I guess, with ZERT over the course of its life, is people often refer to it and think of it as a militia, and it is not a militia.
No, and there's a certain segment of people, I think, that would be attracted to that, but I think it's a much smaller segment than the segment that's going to be turned off by that.
Exactly. Now, the word militia, we sit there, we talk about our Second Amendment, and it's the only one that shall not be infringed, and it contains the word militia. You have guys like Colion Noir out there that have shirts that say, "We are the militia." So there's a certain kind of yin and yang with that word, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's it's literally written into our Second Amendment, but yet it can bring such a negative vibe with it in today's day and age. But as we move this thing forward and then continue to talk about it, we focus on the fact that it's a community, and it's not militia. Now, at this event is where Jack Osborne, Ozzy's son, arrived and was impressed and saw, wow, this is really something, because there were a good amount of ZERT members there and it looked awesome. At that point, there was the development of the show Surviving the Apocalypse, which was supposed to be a 12 episode series that involved ZERT. And then it went sideways because I believe the Colorado shooting happened. I don't remember when that was, or there was a shooting. I think it was the movie theater one or somewhere around there. I don't know. There was something that happened right around there where basically the network decided that it was not in best interest to do that. So there is only the pilot episode, which still has, I believe, over 1 million views on Facebook, or on YouTube. So that helped grow it. And then as it continued to move forward, they got involved. Aaron somehow identified the Outbreak Omega event that was put on by DPMS at the time. And they got involved with it. They were there the first time, and I think it was right around that is when their membership milestone hit over 10,000 members. And then the next year they ran the Omega Outbreak, which was, I think 6. And then they had some issues with the range and they had to move it to Utah for 7, and it fell off a little bit. And, now we've been trying to get Outbreak Omega 8 back up. But listen, it's no secret that there was a lull in ZERT activity. It went through a change as far as, no longer really zombie related, and zombie was a metaphor. And, when I jumped in and Aaron and I decided that I was going to take over and buy the organization, I had some goals in mind, and one of those was to just create ZERT as a brand, and as a lifestyle, not an acronym. And that's apparent. We've removed all of that, and ZERT is now a trademark logo, and it's just like the word Nike. So it's just a word. That being said, there is a goal and there is a dream of mine that an acronym comes back, but it is something completely different. It is nothing, and it is more emergency response team than anything eradication.
Right.
And so go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, as far as that goes, like, timing is everything. ZERT, right. Insofar as being a zombie outbreak related organization, ZERT did come in right at the sweet spot. You were talking about The Walking Dead earlier. When The Walking Dead first came out, I was Walking Dead super fan number 1.
Right.
I remember it must have come out in late 08, early 09, because I remember when I was in Afghanistan in 2009, we were like watching the first season and we all loved it. And as realistic as a zombie thing can be, The Walking Dead was pretty realistic, and it had the luxury of being long form. Like every other zombie thing that had ever been made was a 2-hour long movie, so you had to fit the whole thing into 2 hours. Well, The Walking Dead didn't have to do that, and like you said, it drew a ton of people in.
Right. And it was only, and if I remember correctly, it was only supposed to be that first season. The first season was supposed to end when the CDC blew up. Remember, they were all there. And that was supposed to be it. It was supposed to be over, but they had to rewrite that because of the amount of people that were watching the show. And That was season 1, and I don't remember where it ended up, but go ahead,
But like,
finish, please.
no, and really, you know, we brought up SHOT Show earlier, and I remember going to SHOT Show in 2012, and everything was zombie at
Oh
SHOT
God,
Show.
yeah. Yep.
Zombie green handguards and Hornady zombie bullets, and you know,
Yep.
green tip zombie killing bullets, and zombie green plate carriers, and so, like zombie,
Right.
zombie. And it was kind of like Nickelback, like for a minute, like everybody loved it, and then
Right.
just as quickly, like everybody turned against it. So
Now you say
there,
that, but every single year, a new zombie movie, zombie game, zombie theme thing still comes out. There is still a Zombies in the Heartland match put on by Hornaday every year. There is still another Resident Evil video game that comes out. Whether you want to look at it like zombies or not, The Last of Us, which was a game, just came out as a new show where the world turns against, because they're plant zombies. I don't know, whatever. But it's funny that people first are like, zombies, and then every year there's still something that comes out about it. But I digress.
No, my only point was that everything ebbs and flows,
Right.
and timing is a big part of it. And
Yep.
one of my, I've said this probably on several podcasts at this point. One of my favorite sayings is that you have to accept reality on reality's terms,
Yeah.
and that's where ZERT went through their high point, and then the tide went back out. Whether you know it's whether or not maybe Nickelback wasn't a good example, maybe like they say. Riding a moped and riding a fat chick is fun until somebody else sees you doing it. So maybe like people want to play zombies in their basement on a video game, but they don't want other people to see them doing it. I don't know, but it's where we are now. And the thing, I thought you were going to say this a second ago, is like really bringing an air of kind of like casual professionalism to ZERT, and making it less fringe and less extremist militia. And I do that in finger quotes because that a lot of people do think that when they bring up militia, or you know, so like bringing an air of professionalism to it, which it's funny because I've told you this story before, but my very first exposure to ZERT was a perfect dichotomy of those two things. Like I was I had to be brought in just to be an RSO for one of the really earlier ZERT shooting courses that was probably 2013 out here in SoCal. And I saw the instructors, which were extremely professional and very, very impressive, to be honest. And then I saw the people that showed up were kind of ragtag, like kind of wannabe militia members that like kind of like you were saying, they were all in like a quasi uniform with with tactical gear that looked like it was like airsoft tactical gear. But and so I could see, like, just me being me, I was simultaneously attracted and turned off to it.
Right. And I think what I've said from the beginning is this community has really expanded, starting from one member to, memberships are going out now, and they're over membership numbers of 26,000, higher than 26,000. So there have been so many members, and there's not 100% member retention right now, which is fine, and I don't know that you'll ever will be. But if there was, I don't want 100% gun nut member. No, I don't want to say gun nut, but like, gun enthusiast members. I want everyone to be there, but it doesn't always need to be that. I want a huge group of member base to be bushcraft guys, like the Luke from Outdoor Boys. Like, I would love it if Luke was a member of ZERT and he was teaching bushcraft in Alaska to all of those people. Yep. And that was just as popular and driving as, Paul Taylor, Jamie Franks doing cool guy shit on the range. Like, that's what I want. The medical side of things. I mean, again, there's not much sexy about, applying a tourniquet and a chest seal and an Israeli bandage, but again, that's the kind of that that skill set alone will be the most used, and the bushcraft side being the second most used. I mean, anybody who starts a fire, is practicing can practice a form of that without using a fire starter log and a lighter. Figure out another way to make fire.
I train my daughter on primitive fire making in my driveway. Like,
that's it.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. So, so as ZERT evolved, it brought the organization and the community to a spot where there wasn't a lot that was going on. XP001 had to step away to get back into the executive protection side, the contracting side, which is obviously what opened the door for having conversations between him and I. I was eyeball deep in Clark Armory things, and the reason why there was a connection there is because as soon as I had Clark Armory up and running, I reached right out to Aaron. I was like, Aaron, let's get something over to the ZERT members, because obviously, every company that I've worked with, I've kind of brought in to ZERT to make an affiliate program. Let's do that again. And then that was the driving force behind it. I reached back out to him a few months later, and then kind of everybody knows where we're at. When I got everything transferred over to HQ here in Connecticut, and I started peeling back, I saw what needed to be done, and we started to put those steps in place, and we've tripped and fallen along the way, but it doesn't matter if that happens, because it just matters that you just get up and you keep moving forward. Folks, if you're listening to this and you're a ZERT member, it's no secret that I have not been as involved on the forefront of ZERT at the kind of the middle half of 2023 moving forward. We set up the training. We had training classes out in California and North Carolina, and there wasn't as big of a turnout, and I wasn't able to stay kind of on the front lines, and I had to take a step back and just let everybody do what they were doing, because I had to get back over to the Clark Armory side to fix some processes over there and ensure a more solidified foundation for ZERT members going forward. And where I'm going with that is, obviously, every ZERT member has a coupon code to buy stuff at Clark Armory, and it's part of the benefit of being a membership. The ammunition world is in a constant state of flux. We saw a big shortage and a big demand in COVID years, and then we've come back from that, and it's kind of reset and leveled out. And now we've gotten some other world events that are going to create another issue. I've been privy to it. I know what's coming. Powder is going up, which is going to cause ammo to go up. I don't know if it's going to be the kind of effect that we had during COVID, but we will see an increase. I needed to stabilize that so I could then step away from that and put all my focus towards getting ZERT where it needs to be. That is based off of everything that we've been talking about and seeing for the last few months. 2024 is a very uncertain year. I think we can agree.
Yeah. And just to jump in here real quick, I just want to point out to anybody that's listening at this point that if you're waiting to buy ammo, I mean, we are kind of in a weird transitional point right now with price, with regard to price and availability. Excuse me. But one thing you need to keep in mind is, I would say one of the biggest and most recent and most impactful firearms or ammunition transitional periods that we went through was in the wake of Sandy Hook in 2013, where every single round of ammunition disappeared. And then it came back, But
Yep.
the one thing that never came back, and this was my whole point from the beginning. Now, 11 years later, ammunition prices have still never returned to what they were like pre-Sandy Hook. Like that was a major shift that's never going to go back. So if you're the person that's listening to this right now and waiting, don't, because it's not going to go back.
I'm gonna provide some insight on that, because in my time in the firearms industry, I worked for manufacturers, and I worked for a manufacturer right before COVID. And I can tell you that those prices were not sustainable. I mean, they just were not. The ammunition, the ammunition that was being sold in 2019, and the direction that it was going was just bottom of the barrel. There was no money being made, and it was at a loss. And that's not the way we live. So companies need to make money to survive, to provide stuff. Back to what you were saying about ammunition. Furthermore, okay, government is still stepping in. We just had to restrict ammunition orders to the state of Washington as of
Government
January
is
1st,
still
2020.
governing.
Exactly. January 1st, 2024. Residents who live in Washington that spend their own hard-earned money on what they want cannot get it delivered to their house. It needs to go to an FFL. I mean, the amount of orders that we saw at the end of December were elevated. So that being said, government is still in overreach mode. Between candidates being removed in 2 states and then more coming, we do not know what we're going to be seeing. A part of me doesn't really worry about it, because I know what level of prepared I am, and it is what it is. But with all of that uncertainty happening, I knew more now more than ever that it was the time for ZERT to grow again, and not just sit at a membership base, but it was time to increase membership on a global level. Having a network of people, I think, is going to be important. Having a community of people is going to be important. You've said it. Excuse me. I've said it. The lone wolf mentality is not the right thought process for this. So what does all that mean for ZERT in 2024? We're working on a couple of things right now. I'm going to be at SHOT Show in a couple of weeks, and my focus on SHOT Show is to grab content of cool stuff, and then to build some relationships with continuing to build relationships with manufacturers that support what we're doing here and will offer cool ass gear to members of ZERT and at a discount. And then to connect with manufacturers for what we have coming. I'm hoping that you can make it out there. To have you out there again would be, I think, a huge benefit. And then obviously meeting the members. We do have a full curriculum of training still ready to be put on the books. We do have an event happening in March in Pennsylvania. It is going to be a Genesis Resurgence type event, but it is going to be it's going to be held at Warhorse Tactics, I believe. And that's Mr. X's range and his facility. So it will be a smaller type event, but it will be based on room clearing type stuff. And it will be some live fire and some dry fire. So that'll kind of give you, that's as much as I'm going to give you for now. We do have an Outbreak Omega event being planned right now. Like I said, I just spoke with XP001. Looks to be Texas, looks to be 2 full days with a Friday evening soiree, if you
Hmm.
will. Um, very similar to what we did in Oklahoma, bourbon and cigars, and then 2 day event. But it's going to be a mix of carnival event, and I'm carnival in air quoting over here, where it's attractions, right? Different things for attendees to do. And then there will also be some modules of training with a few instructors, maybe some seminars as well. There will be vendors, there will be food, there will be, it's going to be a great time. It was what I wanted to put on last year, and I just couldn't make it happen because I got pulled away. That is not the case this year. This thing is moving forward. We There was a chance to have it in Tennessee at Royal Range, but they are booked until 2025. So we may look to book Royal Range in 2025. So that is on the agenda for this year. Membership growth is on the agenda for this year. We are going to continue to grow. We have a marketing agency that we're going to be finalizing things with, where um bottom line is, if you have a meet and greet, I'm going to come out to it, and we're going to get all of the content that we possibly need to continue to make kick-ass videos. We're going to be using this platform more to do gear reviews. I am also working on a subscription box. I know, Jamie, you and I have talked about subscription
Yep.
boxes, and I know it's going to be, and actually it's going to be an upcoming episode. But one of the things that I think is important is to offer a kick-ass subscription box based off of what ZERT is. I mean, I had a watch subscription box. I just did a cigar subscription box. But what firearm, or not firearm, back that up, survivalist box is there? I don't know. I mean, you've done a couple of these, so
Yeah,
maybe there are some.
I've done one that was, I mean, obviously you can't mail out firearms and you can't mail out, well, actually, I did one that was very firearm centric. It was that like every month was like little firearms parts. Like, they wouldn't give you an entire like AR lower parts kit, but they would give you most of an AR lower parts kit, and they would,
Yeah,
give you iron sights, and they had ones that were state compliant. Like they're like in one of the boxes, if you lived in a free state, you got a 30 round Magpul PMag. If you lived in California, you got one of the 10 round ones or whatever,
10 rounders.
the
Yeah.
the, the 1030s,
Yep.
or whatever they're called. And so I did one like that, and then I did one that actually was more survival, or yeah, survival, or camping gear related. And th- there were good and bad things about both of them. I did, one of them I did for about 3 years, and then one I stuck with it, and then one I did for about a year and a half, and then stopped it. But no, there's like you said, we're gonna do a separate episode on it, but there's good and bad takeaways from it. But it actually is something I enjoyed. Like the one thing I enjoyed about it was, both of the ones I did, you could do them at different price tiers.
Sure.
So you
Yep.
could do whatever price tier made sense for you. If you're, uh, you could do it at the $40 a month price tier, or you could do it like one of them. I think the highest price tier went up to like $400 a month or something like that, and you got some really Gucci shit at that one, at that
Yeah.
level. But for me, it was like, just I don't know. Hopefully, this doesn't make me sound any kind of way, but to me, like I don't really miss 40 or $50 a month. Like
No,
they
no.
hit
Yeah.
my card for it automatically, and but then like every month I would like almost forget about it, and then I would get
And
this
then
like box of like cool stuff show up at my door, and I would be like, oh yeah, awesome. And honestly, I think, and actually, in both of the subscription boxes I did, they guaranteed that the value of what was in the box was more than what you were paying for it. So
Exactly, and that's part of it. But I mean, there's a model on the whiteboard in the conference room that has a monthly box and then or also a quarterly box. I want to put stuff in there and curate it where it's stuff that people are like, heck yes, this is awesome. Now that can live outside of a ZERT membership. That can live with a ZERT membership. There are some amazing things that are kind of on the horizon right now. The One of the things, and I'm going to tread lightly around this because I don't know of it yet, but my web developer said that a forum is basic, or like Facebook is just a forum in a different format, right?
yeah,
And again, the biggest problem with Facebook is Facebook. And I love that the members can connect with it and it's easy for a lot of them, but it's also, and I got this from a member in Georgia, it can be overwhelming with the amount of different groups that ZERT has. You have the main page, and then you have the squadrons and the states, and then you have the specialty groups, and there are so many pages, and they all require somebody to be monitoring that. And it is still under the umbrella of Zuck, and once a month I get an alert saying we've removed one of your posts from 2000 from your post from 2013
oh yeah,
because of what. It's like, cool, you got nothing better to do, but whatever. So in this upcoming year here, as we do some of these changes, there is a Facebook clone model that is basically built on just a web platform that will be like a forum where members can go, and it is not regulated. I know that sounds very much like what XP001 was talking about, in 2019 or 21 or whenever it was, when he was talking about Facebook getting their own social media platform. But I don't want to ever refer to it as a social media platform because there are a bunch of social media platform clones that come out that try and compete with Facebook, and everybody just ends back up on Facebook. Truth Social, Parlor, blah 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 blah, like all of it. Um, and I want to keep Facebook there for the people that want to use it like they use it, but then the forum is for the people who do not want to be on social media. And I get that. That makes 100% sense. But those are just some of the things that are coming with ZERT this year. We're continuing to obviously make sure that the website is updated and has merchandise on it. The auto renew is working. One of the other things that we're going to be doing is we're going to have artists that are kind of on retainer to commission to get artwork designed, I'm sorry, ideas designed into kick-ass artwork to go up on merchandise. I don't want to just be just putting out things for people to buy. I mean, I want the community to direct what they want. If they want a state hat, we'll get them a state hat. If they want a squadron hat, we'll get them a squadron hat. I mean, one of the best things that we did was change everything to print on demand. So when you order something, it's literally made to order. But I think that's kind of the path forward. I mean, in a nutshell of where ZERT is going. It's definitely not going away. It's just going to get bigger from here.
yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I know a certain talented artist and designer that submitted some new artwork to you about a new thing, but
That's right. That's right.
no, but I can only speak to myself here, or speak for myself here. Take, for example, challenge coins. Like I can go to the Navy Exchange and they have a whole rack of challenge coins, and I could buy every single one of them if I wanted to, and I could bring them back here and put them on display and go, look at my massive collection of challenge coins. But up in my bedroom, I do have a rack of challenge coins, but they were ones that were given to me by very certain people, very key people for very specific key things. And those are the ones that actually mean something to me. And the ones that I could go buy at the Navy Exchange, I own 0 of those because they would mean nothing to me.
Right.
So, this is one of the things I talked to you about early on is, making, more things that are, whether it be a patch or be a challenge coin or whatever, but making more things that are on an earned basis instead of just a bought and paid for basis. Just speaking for myself, that is something that would be more attractive to me. Like earning the Delta Troop patch. Like
Right. Yep.
I love that. And as goofy as it may sound to somebody, I took a measure of pride in being able to do that and earn that and getting this little thing that I don't know. You could probably tell me. I don't know how many people have it, but not very many, it seems like.
No, there's not a lot. And it's, I'm going to have to do a deep dive into that and see how many, because the new member over in France which was the coolest way. I mean, like, we just watched Zombieland and they had the zombie kill of the week. I would say that the D Troop submit of the week was the guy who submitted the video before he became a ZERT member. Like he was, I'm gonna knock this out and then be a member as well. So I think it was the first time in ZERT history, and I'm gonna have to check, where a first year membership went out with a D Troop badge. So he also asked how many were in the D Troop. So good question to ask, and even better one to provide the answer for.
But again, just going back to what we were saying earlier about spreading the peanut butter, there, we could have ZERT fitness challenges and ZERT bushcraft challenges, but kind of in the same vein as the D Troop. That's just my little idea that I'm throwing out here. I'm shotgunning you with this in real time. But
I think it's great. I'm glad that we sat down and outlined some of this. I think that this is one of those episodes that we will continue to circle back to throughout this year. Set milestones as far as, okay, the next time we talk about the state of the union for ZERT will probably be either close to or right after the March event. So if you're listening to the show, if you're watching this on YouTube, keep an eye out for the announcement on social media for the March event, for the slots to be opened, and make sure that you're there. I'm going to be there. Hopefully we'll get you out there for it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there is probably some classes coming up in California, and I know that there will be a couple of students out there that will be surprise students for you and for the other members. So I'm excited for that as well. But there's a lot coming down the pike here. So if you are listening to this and you're not a ZERT member, head over to the website, join the community, get connected to members, and start talking. Start figuring out who's around you. If you're a new member and you don't know how to approach somebody about this subject, reach out and talk to me, reach out and talk to Jamie, reach out and talk to some of these people that have been involved with this. I had somebody, a close friend of mine who lives in Montana, who's very much a ZERT member at heart. I'm just waiting for him to hit the join now. But he asked me, he was like, are there any members out in Montana? And I think there's a few, but he talks to other people and they sometimes look at him kind of side-eyed. There's a way to approach it and to not immediately put people back on their heels. I think when you and I had this conversation, when we started getting to some of those episodes on here that were all doom and gloom, we don't want that. You know,
Yep.
it's not, we don't want to fear people into this. We want them to be involved with it because they love what it brings to the table, and they have stuff to bring to the table to offer the community. And I think that's the most important thing.
That is a huge point to make. Like that. This is a dumb example, but there's this old video game. I'm not much of a video game guy, but there was this old video game called The Commandos, and you had like these five or six characters, but each character had a different little specialty. And in order to complete the mission, you had to use this guy for his specialty, and then
Right.
use this guy, and then but yeah, everybody brings something to the table, and that's what I would hope that would attract new ZERT members. Is you don't have to be MacGyver, but
Right.
if you can bring, I'm sure you know something that I don't, that you could teach me. So
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not the XP001 or the Mr. X or even the senior chief. I'm not the firearms guy that's had all of this real world experience to teach that. I've done my fair share of training, and I'm always a student of that and want to know more. But I'll bring a different skill set to the equation, and that's fine. You don't have to be, tactical Timmy. You don't have to be that guy. This is not what this is about. It's about the community. The guy in Montana that I just spoke to, he's an EMT / firefighter, and a huge, I mean, he skis, like, he spent time in that kind of mountain environment. That brings a whole separate skill set to the area. So, folks, again, as always, we love doing these episodes with you. We love that you spend your time listening or hopefully watching this. And we always appreciate your feedback. I know that I look forward to seeing any comments that come up, and I know that I look forward to hearing from people that may not send out the comments, but reach out to me and provide feedback on the episode. So
same.
Yeah. So as always, you guys stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time. Jamie?
No, just a good button, I think, is one of my other little catchphrases is like, in an emergency, don't show up at my door with an open hand and an empty mouth. Like, bring something.
Very true.
But that's once we have gotten to emergency status. So between now and then, you can work on having something in your hand to bring to my door, like figuratively speaking. But no, like, it. Don't show up with an open hand and an empty mouth in an emergency, but show up to ZERT with an open hand and an empty mouth, and we'll fill it up for you. In a good way.
In a good way.
Yeah. So it's easy to be hard. It's hard to be smart. Get training.
Awesome. ZP002 out.